Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel, where today I'm going to walk you through how I completed path number 1 in the Epoch of Pain. This is the far left path for science and tech champs only, and the global node for every fight is Hurt Locker. So the way I'm going to work these walkthrough videos is I'm going to show you one or my best attempt at every fight. There's no need to really show, every single run that I made of the champ. The goal here is to get you an idea of how to play the fight, not show you, all 45, 50, 60 minutes of my gameplay here. So we're going to start off with HULKLING here, which I went in with Luke Cage. So a couple really important things that you want to know about HULKLING, even before you go into the fight. And the first one is that you really want to bring in a hero tag champion for this fight. And you may have noticed at the start of the fight the little superiority text that showed up on my side of the screen. When you bring in a hero tag champ, you will stun him when you use a special attack, which is really what you want. It really helps you keep your tempo going in this fight. Now, the basic idea in this fight is you want to be throwing specials into his block. However, he has a protection mechanic that you need to knock him down with a heavy attack in order to remove protection. So if you can possibly get into a rhythm with it, the best way to approach this fight is to push him to his special 2 with like a full combo, maybe a relic, and then another full combo into a special attack. And then when he throws the special 2, you want to try and heavy counter it. And the spacing on it is really not as bad as you think it is. He doesn't snap to you when he does that dive bomb move. Once you have protection down, you want to throw specials into his block, and you kind of have two ways to approach this. You can kind of play it like you would with Serpent or with Hulkbuster, where you do a full combo, and then you kind of just hesitate slightly and throw your special attack, and they will block that after that combo ender 100% of the time almost. The other way is just to wait until he blocks, backs up and blocks on his own, and then launch a full combo into the special. Now, you do gain power when you hit his block, so you can use that to your advantage. You don't necessarily need to be at a special attack or bar of power before you launch your special, because hitting into his block is going to give you power as well. Do keep in mind Hurt Locker is in play here, so if you do choose to use the same special twice in a row, you do need to follow that up with a heavy attack, or you're going to take a huge burst of damage. This was not the first path that I did in Epoch of Pain, but I think overall this is the single best fight that I had in any of them. This was a 0 damage fight. I took that combo at the start, but I was indestructible, and I don't take a single blocked hit after this, so this is a really, really strong fight for me. So other than that, he is regenning, but if you have a champion with debuffs, and let's face it, if you're bringing a science character to this fight, you're probably going to have enough debuffs to trigger the Despair Mastery and really keep his healing in check. You'll also notice that with Luke Cage specifically, even when protection is up, he is doing, noticeable chunks of damage into HULKLING's block with his special attacks, and that's just because his attack rating increases for every one of those exhaustions on the opponent. So even if you don't have protection down, it's still worth it to throw the special attack into his block. In addition, going back to what I talked to at the very start of this fight, if you throw a special attack into his block and you're a hero tag champion, you will guarantee that passive stun, which will then allow you to push him possibly to that special 2. So again, you throw a special into his block, combo into the relic, into another combo. That is giving him a lot of power, and then you can potentially set yourself up for success by baiting the special 2 and heavy counter it and getting protection down that way. Talking about Hurt Locker one more time briefly, if you know that you're going to push him to his special 2, it is safe to use the same special attack twice in a row, because then he's going to toss that special 2. You can follow it up with a heavy attack, just like I did there, and prevent that burst damage from triggering. So talking about alternate options here, in the tech class, really anybody works. Iron Man, Warlock is really good. Warlock can shut off his healing, but the virus is not going to last very long because he has a lot of buffs. Science Champ's definitely preferable here. Photon, really good. Just watch out for her unblockable specials. Silk and Punk, also very good, but realistically speaking, any hero tag champion that you bring to this fight is probably going to have a pretty good time. Alright, moving on to fight number 2 against Absorber Man. Now there's a note on this fight that lets you override your damage type, and you can switch between all physical damage and all energy damage. And the goal here is to match your damage type to whatever form he is in at any given moment. So recall that when he's in Uru form, he has no energy resistance, and then when he is in Magma form, he has no physical resistance. So ideally, when he's in Uru, you want to have energy damage, and when he's in Magma, you want to deal physical damage. And you switch your modes by using your heavy attack, which you want to be doing anyways, to knock him out of his current form whenever he uses a special attack. Really like Science Champions again for this fight, mostly because the debuffs, again, if you run the Despair Mastery like you should be, the debuffs are going to shut off his healing, which is a major problem in this fight. Now, he cannot heal above where he started, so if you throw revives at this fight, you're not going to lose progress. That was a change that they made from when this fight first came out. But you definitely want to not have the fight last longer than possible. So that's why I really like somebody like Photon for this fight, because she has so many debuffs and she has access to that Petrify passive whenever she applies one, that she really goes a long way towards shutting off his regen. You can see here he has the regen passive, but he is gaining no health. He's effectively heal blocked here, which really goes a long way again to keeping the fight as short as possible. Now, the other big node that you have to pay attention to is an unstoppable node, where if you are far away from him, you get the unstoppable buff, and if you're close to him, he's going to get it. And if you're far away and you get it, it's going to end immediately, because that's one of his abilities. But if he gets it, especially like mid-special, mid-combo, he is going to turn around and totally, like, you know, punch your face in. The other thing you want to make sure about in this fight is that you want to try your best to alternate the specials that you're baiting from him. Because if you allow him to refine his form and he hits your block, he has a chance to crit into your block, and the amount of like burst damage that he will do through your block is very likely to kill you outright. So you definitely want to avoid that if at all possible. In addition, you don't want to forget about the Hurt Locker global node, so you need to be again worrying about what special you're doing and not doing the same special twice in a row. But, you know, again, similar to the previous fight, if you know that you're going to be able to heavy him, then you can definitely take the risk and do the same special twice in a row. Only other node you have to watch out for here is Brute Force. You might have seen me take a little bit of degen damage. Shouldn't really be problematic in this fight because he's very aggressive. If you let him get the unstoppable buff and you have to wait it out, that's really the only time that the degen could be risky to you. So talking about alternate champs for this fight, I really think you should focus on Science champs again, because they have access to so many debuffs, and with the Despair Mastery, you really want to be shutting off his healing. So Luke Cage is fantastic. His concussions can turn off a couple of the nodes. Silk has access to the slow on her heavy attack and can get around the unstoppable. Overseer, his special concussions can shut off the regen, and he has a chance to shut off the nodes as well. Spider-Ham also very good. In the tech class, options are less good. You can keep him in his base form with Guillotine 2099 just by baiting heavies and using your special 1. Sentinel has access to the heal block and a special 1. You can use that. Prowler you might already have on your team, so you can just throw him in with like a team revive. But again, focus on Science champs if at all possible. Alright, number 3 is Infamous Iron Man. A couple things you want to know before you go into this fight. The first one is that you cannot use a champion who's going to be gaining a lot of buffs. If you have 3 or more buffs on you, you're going to be doing 0 damage. So, you know, some tech champs gain buffs, gain armor buffs. You don't really want to be using them here. You also don't want to use anybody who is immune to shock. Shock resistance is fine, energy resistance is fine, but shock immunity is going to get you straight up killed. Now, the way to play this fight is you need to know how to dex and punish both his special 1 and his special 2, because you need to punish his special attack in order to get access to the grit, and then when he throws his special attack, you need to heavy him before that timer goes off that's on you. You see that like little pyramid timer thing? You need to heavy him before that timer goes off, or you're going to take some burst damage here. So if he throws the special 1, he activates his aura, and normally he is going to resist all forms of knockdown, which is really why you need that grit from punishing his special attacks. If you don't punish him or you get hit by the special attacks, you won't get that grit, and then if you try to heavy him, he's going to resist it, and you're not going to knock him down, and he's probably going to counter you and kill you immediately here. So very easy rhythm to this fight. Again, as long as you know how to dex and punish his special attacks. With a special 1, the timing on it is really the only key there. The special 2, you can kind of outrange the first part and then just dex like the last hit of the beam and go back in. And if he does hit you again with his special attacks, he's going to special lock you, which is problematic. He could possibly power burn you, which again is going to deal a ton of damage. Yeah, so again, with Hurt Locker, you got to focus on alternating your special attacks as well, but your special attacks in this fight are not really as important as the heavy knockdown after his. So you'll be doing, you know, plenty of damage just by keeping the rhythm of the fight. But again, most important thing here is just to know how to punish his specials. Get that grit passive on you. As soon as you punish the special, you can do a few hits in your combo and then hold block, wait for him to throw a heavy attack, and you can either interrupt his heavy after the first hit with your heavy, or you can let him do like the full slap and then finish off your heavy there, either way. Also, don't forget to take advantage of his striker in this fight, because once you punish his special, you can combo him into the striker, and then you can heavy right out of the striker, which saves you from having to take, you know, a bit of the chip damage baiting out and a heavy attack. So, you know, do pay attention to that. That's pretty much it for this. Talking about other options, pretty much anybody works for this fight. I really like Luke Cage. Just in general, he works really well for this fight. Photon is really good as well. In the tech class, Stark Enhanced Spider-Man put in some work. I'm pretty sure Campo used Sparky for this fight and had a lot of success. Sparky's evade is also really going to help you with those special attacks. If you do miss a dex, he can possibly evade it, and then you can still go in and punish it. Prowler, again, you might already have on your team for the final fight on this path. Deathstrike I kind of threw in there just because she can possibly go unstoppable against his special attacks, which again will allow you to dash right in and punish them and kind of keep the tempo of the fight going. Punk is really good because he has access to that stun on the evade, so if you miss like a dex, you miss a punish, you can still possibly go in with the parry, trigger that passive stun, and then go right into a heavy attack that way, so really good. Void I threw in there because his heavy attack animation is really far, so if you're struggling with like the spacing on the heavy, somebody like Void will be good for that. I think I do die before this fight finishes, but you kind of get the idea here. Again, I'm not going to show you every attempt at every fight. I missed the heavy attack because I don't have the grit on me, and I die, but either way, we'll go ahead and move on. Alright, next up is Onslaught, a really beefy Onslaught, a pretty straightforward fight. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it is relatively straightforward. Couple things you want to know here. Whenever you gain a bar of power, you're going to gain a Power Sting debuff on you, and if you intercept it, it transfers to him. And the Power Sting damage when it comes to him is not very much, but it is a lot for you, so you do want to make sure that you remove it from yourself before you use a special attack. That being said, you really don't need to use your special attacks in this fight, so don't think that you're reliant on them. The biggest thing to learn in this fight is how to punish his special one, because as you can see, he is unstoppable on his heavies, and the timing to punish his heavy is really tight, so you cannot reliably do it. The special one punish is the only way that you're going to be reliably keeping tempo in this fight. And this was something that I didn't know how to do properly the first time I went into this fight when it came out, you know, however many months ago, but I've kind of gotten much better at it since. So the basic idea behind this special one punish is you want to dex the first two blasts normally, and then you want to dex the third one early, which gives you enough time to dash all the way into him and then dex out of the way of the last blast, and then you're close enough to him at that point where you can punish it. It is not easy. I'm not trying to tell you that it's easy. It's going to take practice. But if you don't know how to punish the special one, what's going to end up happening is you're going to have to get your openings in this fight via blind intercepts. And again, his AI is not really cooperative with intercepting, I have found. It wasn't back then, and it really isn't now. So if you're comfortable pushing to the special 2, that's also an option. I am definitely not down with punishing the special 2 or dexing it for that matter, so I strictly stick to the special 1 in this fight. So going back to the special 1 for a moment here, if you are somebody who is not comfortable with the special 1 punish, but you are pretty comfortable at least with the special 1 dex, that is definitely better than nothing, because for each hit of his special attacks that don't land, you're going to be gaining energy resistance buffs, which are those blue buffs that you see on me right now, and those buffs are going to go a long way toward mitigating the neuroshock damage, which is all energy damage. And remember, the neuroshocks are going to be on you whenever you crit into him, so they're kind of unavoidable. Now that being said, they did add the dulled node onto this fight as well, which is going to be beneficial, because dulled says that for every buff on you and for every debuff on him, your crit rate is going to be reduced. So the chances that you get a neuroshock on you we're going to be pretty low if you are consistently dexing his special 1 and you're using a champion who has, decent access to debuffs. Again, going back to the science class, which always has, debuffs and frequent access to them. So my first few attempts at this fight were with Prowler. You can see when this fight started, he was already down a little bit. I made a couple of college tries with Prowler. I really didn't like him for this fight. I thought he would be really good because he doesn't crit, and the only way I would get neuroshocks on me is if I took specials to the face. The problem that I was having with Prowler in this fight is his power drain. Recall that whenever his opponent uses a special attack, whatever power they don't use is drained from him, and that's kind of how he gets access to his charges, and then he converts those into his furies. But what I found was that I had to be extra reliant on intercepts in order to get my openings against Onslaught because I wasn't baiting as many specials as I was with other champs. And because Onslaught's AI I felt like was really too passive, he probably just wasn't really working for me. So you might have better luck with him, you might not, but I much preferred Photon here and ended up doing the rest of his health bar with Photon. Photon has great damage, a lot of debuffs for that dulled node. She has some energy resistance built into her kit, I think, which is just magnified with the energy resistance buff. So really, really good option here. Alright, let's go ahead and talk through some of the other good options I have listed in the top right corner there. We'll start with the tech class. And the first champ I have listed is Jack-o'-lantern. Now, Jack-o'-lantern did not exist when this fight first came out, and he was designed specifically to hard counter pretty much everything that Onslaught has going on. So if you have a Jack, if you have him ranked up, if you know how to use him, if you like how to use him, you can absolutely find a spot for him on your team for this path. I know a few people who ended up bringing like one strong science champ, so Silk, Photon, Luke Cage, Spider-Punk, etc., and then they brought Jack specifically for this fight, and then they brought Prowler specifically for the Jabari fight, which we'll talk about later. So that's a really, really solid team. In hindsight, if I had to do this path again, I would probably do that as well. My Jack is currently only rank 2, and that's why I really didn't consider him. But if I had to do this again, I would probably rank him up to rank 3, and then bring either Luke or Photon, and then Jack or Prowler as my second and third. Next one I want to talk about is Shocker. Again, a champion who doesn't crit and can really avoid a lot of the damage from the neuroshocks that you would otherwise be taking in this fight. And he has access to huge amounts of burst damage. Plays really well with Hurt Locker as well, so you can fire off a special 1, build up some charges, build up to your special 2, fire it off, and then go into the heavy attack and burst him down that way. Ironheart also designed to counter Onslaught, maybe like 80% of what he does she counters. If you're going to go in with Ironheart, you need to be aware that she is metal, so she cannot naturally remove the neuroshocks by dashing back. And then you also need to use the Rupture pre-fight with her. If you go in with the Incinerate pre-fight, you're going to have a super bad time, and you're probably going to melt very, very quickly. Moving on to the Science class, pretty much any decent Science champ works for this fight. And again, if you're using a Science champ for this fight, you're relying on the easy access to debuffs in order to trigger the dulled node and then increase your survivability because you're not going to be critting as much and you'll be taking fewer neuroshocks. So again, Luke Cage, really, really solid here. He does a ton of damage. Spider-Punk, we talked about getting easy openings via that evade stun. Really, really good for this fight, and he can solo this fight if you're a decent Spider-Punk player. Silk also has a huge burst damage, plays really well with Hurt Locker if you go into her special 3 rotation. And then the final champ I have listed here is D-Gen, or Deathless She-Hulk. The reason I have her listed is because with every one of her trauma debuffs, she increases the likelihood that the opponent is going to use a special attack, and for a passive AI like I have found Onslaught to be in this fight, that can really, keep your tempo up. And if he's throwing specials, you are punishing them like you should be. You can just keep building up those traumas and just do a ton of damage in a very short amount of time. Another champion who was not out when this fight first came out, but I know that she will have a lot of success here. So speaking of Photon, I think we are about to wrap this up. There we go. And let's move on to fight number 5. Alright, moving on to the second to last fight. It is Jessica Jones. Now this fight kind of plays out very similarly to the infamous Iron Man fight, where you need to punish her special attacks in order to get that grit passive. And if you don't do that, she is eventually going to get a very lengthy passive unstoppable and you're going to have a really, really bad time. Now, her special 2 is very easy to punish because she does a lot of, like, close combat moves and then finishes with an uppercut. Her special 1 is less easy to punish. She does a couple of moves and then she throws something at you, and you really need to work on learning the spacing in order to punish that special attack. Otherwise, again, you're not going to get access to that grit passive. Now, she also has Crit Me Baby one more time, so only critical hits are going to do damage. She also has a node where if you intercept, you're going to get guaranteed crits for a certain amount of time, so any like really hard-hitting champion is really going to excel here. And again, Photon put in a ton of work for me here. You're also going to be gaining cruelties as your combo goes up. Again, increasing your critical damage. With those guaranteed crits, you're going to be doing a lot of damage very, very quickly. The problem is that if you take one hit, those cruelties detonate and you're probably going to die immediately. So very high risk, very high reward in this fight. The last node you need to be worried about is Dawn of Protection, which are those icons there that say M, H, and S. So periodically she's going to be gaining stacks of protection, and you need to perform one of the shown moves, either a medium combo end or a heavy or a special attack, to remove those stacks. And once they are grayed out, you cannot use that move until you use the others. So if you play map 8 in AQ, this is on 1 or 2 of the paths in there, so you should be relatively familiar with it. You can see this one is almost over already, so let's quickly talk through the other good options. In the tech class, Dark Enhanced Spider-Man is going to do great here. He's going to assist you in evading those special attacks, and he has huge crits and can do a lot of damage in a very short amount of time. Again, in the science class, Luke Cage, very, very strong, has that safety net with the indestructible that could come in handy as well. But pretty much anyone works here as long as you understand how to punish your special attacks. Alright, moving on to the final fight of path number 1. It is Jabari Panther, and if you have access to Prowler, I would say he is the #1 option for this fight, specifically because he is immune to Falter. So you see the Falter timer on Jabari Panther. When it expires, if you are close to her, you're going to get faltered. If you're far away from her, you put the Falter on her. But being immune to the Falter means that you can keep tempo, ignore that node completely. It makes the rest of the fight a lot easier. Now the rest of this fight revolves around Cleanse. You can see that she has another timer on her. When that timer expires, she gets a permanent passive cleanse. This is in addition to her normal cleanse that she gets when she attempts a basic attack. And then when you throw a special attack, you're going to put debuffs on her. If she cleanses a debuff in any way, she's going to gain a damage reflection passive just like she did a moment ago. And you either need to wait it out or just accept that whatever damage you deal to her, you're going to take back to yourself. So when you punish her special attacks, you want to use full combos. You can reset the cleanse timer on her with light combo enders, so you want to stick to those. And then full combos to outlast the natural cleanse that she gets from her kit whenever she's attempting an attack. And that way, when you throw your special attack, she won't have her natural cleanse on you, and you'll be safe to put those debuffs on her. Talking through other good options for this fight, in the tech class, pretty much anybody works, any high damage champ. Sparky is great. Sentinel, you do kind of have to watch with his special attacks because they apply debuffs, but if you're successfully avoiding the cleanses like you should, it shouldn't be too much of a problem. Similarly with Jack, he does have access to debuffs, I think, on his special attack or his light combo ender with that cowardice. So again, pay attention to that. In the science class, you really don't want to use anybody because, again, they typically have access to uncontrollable debuffs, and you're going to be triggering that cleanse and that damage reflection passive a lot. Also, turn off the Resonate Mastery if you run it. That was a hard lesson that I learned about halfway through this fight on my run as well. That's about it for path number 1. We're going to finish off this fight here. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope this was helpful to you. If it was, please remember to hit like, subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos. Make sure to share this with anybody who might be struggling on this path. And as always, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again next time.